Sea of Thieves is the funnest game I've ever played. I've dumped thousands of hours into it over the years, and one of the things that allowed me to do that more than anything else was learning how to play solo. As I think we can all agree, the most fun way to play this game is with your friends, and playing without them can make the game feel a bit empty or even too hard. However, if you learn how to play solo properly, it can open up a whole new side of the game that you've probably never gotten to experience before. So today, I'm going to dive into a few different ways that you can help yourself get more comfortable being solo, and a few tips and tricks you can follow along the way. So let's get right into it. And the first thing you have to learn when playing solo, no matter what, is you have to learn to be okay with sinking. This is probably the single most important point on this list, is when you are playing as a solo, you are going to just sink a lot more than if you aren't. Unfortunately, that is just the way it is, as there are no boats in this game specifically designed for only one person. So the sooner that you can become okay with sinking, the sooner you can begin to experience all the different fun opportunities that playing as a solo can offer. And unfortunately, there's no way to learn being okay with sinking other than just sinking enough times. But moving on, a big point that can help you out as a solo is by hitting a grade 5 emissary for whatever faction you are planning on grinding out before you actually start collecting treasure. This will lead in nicely to our next point, but if you're curious how you can go ahead and get yourself a grade 5 emissary easily, I actually just posted a video in which I cover the fastest way for each emissary to hit grade 5. So go ahead and check that out. But this is important because the next point is remembering to sell your treasure often. It happens quite often where I'll come across someone on the seas and they happen to be a solo player, and most of the time they always have a decent amount of treasure on their boat, which of course makes me more inclined to want to sink them. Now they do always give the excuse of why are you sinking me because I'm a solo, which to be fair does work as an excuse so long as you have no treasure on your boat. If you don't have anything worth taking for people, most of the time, they will just leave you alone. So a way you can make sure this happens more often is by selling your treasure often, instead of stacking it up on your boat as if you would with a bunch of other players with you. The method I like to follow as a solo if I'm grinding a specific faction is I will do a raid voyage for that faction, complete it, get all the treasure, and then immediately go sell and repeat the process. This way, at most, I only ever have one event on my boat, and it's still relatively quick to get a lot of treasure because you can dive to events. But moving on, this point will help you more so with the being okay with sinking point from earlier, and it's going to help you care a little less about your ship, which I know sounds weird, but when you care less about your ship, you will also care less about sinking. They kind of just go hand in hand. So how you do this is every time you sail somewhat close to an island, shoot yourself off. Let your boat go on its own journey and kind of just turn your brain off from thinking about your ship while you're on that island. You don't have to spend extra time than you need to, but definitely go ahead, check barrels, take your time, and I've had some really fun interactions where I've gotten back to the ship and I'm either on an island or my boat is very close to sinking. And when any of these things happen, it can help you learn how to deal with it as a solo, but also just kind of help you laugh about the situation. Another upside to this is you will be getting lots of supplies, especially if you're killing captains. Their storage crates always end up having a couple curse balls, which are always going to be your best friend as a solo player. But let's move on to the final tip and advice for this video, and in my opinion might be the most important thing you can learn as a solo, and it is learning the order of importance of things, which luckily I am going to share with you if you don't know them by this point, because since you are solo, this means you have to take care of all the separate roles on your own. Some of the roles, however, are less important than others, and knowing when a role is less important than another role is very important to know as a solo. And the first and foremost, most important thing you have to worry about, regardless of solo or not, is making sure your water level doesn't get too high. Now, this is something you don't have to worry about very often because you don't always have to bucket yourself dry. However, Letting your water level get too high will put an end to any session that you have, as you will just sink. So the most important thing is just making sure that doesn't happen, bucketing water until you're out of danger of sinking. After that, the next most important thing is returning pressure. And as you can see in this video, I like to set up a little scenario for myself at its skeleton encampments to help me learn this, and you might find it useful, where I fully demast my ship and I shoot chain shots at my wheel to get my wheel requiring the most amount of repairs possible, and then I also put a couple of holes in my ship. This is good because it can really help simulate what you would have to do in a real situation if you were in the worst possible position. So then, once your water level's fine, you have to return pressure. This is very important because otherwise it allows the other people to just fully focus on putting holes in your boat. So a problem a lot of new players or solo players will run into is thinking they have to worry too much about repairing the boat, and the other boat attacking them just ends up having no pressure, and it's a very easy fight. But let's say that you have the water level manageable and you've returned some pressure, you have to worry about keeping yourself in angle so that they can only put holes on one side of your boat. However, to do this, you do have to make sure the wheel is repaired, because it turns incredibly slowly if it needs more than 2 repairs, so definitely make sure you're repairing your wheel before you're repairing any holes below deck. And if your wheel is fine and you are keeping pressure, then you can now move on to focusing on your holes. Now you may have noticed I haven't mentioned getting your mast back up, and this is for one reason. That reason being you don't actually need your mast to be able to participate fairly in a fight. So don't worry about the mast yet. What you are going to worry about next, however, is repairing far away to get to holes, or holes on opposite side of the boat from where you are currently being shot at. And then, once all of this is looked after, you can now feel free to raise your mast, assuming you are in a position where they aren't shooting constantly at you. And at this point, assuming you've knocked their mast down or given them enough pressure, you can also just choose to run away if you would like, but this is the very specific and crucial order of importance and probably the most important part of this video. So if there was any part you were going to rewatch, I recommend it be this part, because this is very crucial information to learn, and as soon as you've mastered this step of stuff, you will be easily good enough to manage yourself solo on a sloop. And that does it for today's video. It got a little long towards the end, but if you stuck with it, let me know with a like or comment down below. If you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe and turn those notifications on so you get notified every time a video goes live. We'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace!